My mother bought a kilo of tiger prawns. Peeled every single one for my younger brother to eat. She said he was at the age to grow. And I was the older sister, eating the shrimp heads for calcium would be enough for me. I accidentally knocked over his bowl of rice. And she immediately slapped me and shoved me out into the hallway. The motion sensor light was broken. The corridor as dark as ink. I curled up in a corner, listening to my brother giggling inside while watching cartoons. Suddenly someone tumbled down from the upper floor and landed right at my feet. It was a man in a suit. His stomach soaked in blood. One look and I knew he wasn't going to make it. He grabbed my ankle tightly. His voice trembling. "Kid, call 120 for me. This watch, sell it and you could buy a house." I stared at the watch. "I don't need a house. If I save you, can you take me away with you?" Maybe the pain made him delirious. He tightened his grip around my ankle. His fingers pale white. "What did you say?" He was panting hard, the metallic stench of blood overpowering the old moldy smell of the hallway. I squatted down so my eyes were level with his. I said, "Take me with you. I don't eat tiger prawns. I don't need anyone to peel them. I can sleep on the floor. I can wash clothes for you, just don't make me go back into that house." I pointed at the crack of light behind the door. The warm yellow glow leaked out. And inside I could hear my mother's shrill voice coaxing my brother to eat another bite. The man froze, then started coughing violently. Each cough brought another surge of blood from the wound in his stomach. "All right." He clenched his teeth and forced out the word, pressing the blood-stained watch into my hand. "If I don't die, I'll take you with me." I nodded, and I didn't call 120. I knew that if I called an ambulance, the police would come too. A man with a stab wound definitely wouldn't want to be questioned. I dragged him under the staircase, where rotten wood and cardboard boxes were piled up, left behind by the neighbors who had renovated their apartment. He was heavy. I was only 9. After pulling him a little, my arms felt like they were going to tear off. But I didn't make a sound. I just clenched my teeth like an ant carrying food, bit by bit moving him inside. I rummaged through the pile of old clothes and found a torn padded jacket my father no longer wore. I covered him with it. "Don't die," I whispered. "If you die, I'll have nowhere left to go." He closed his eyes, his face as white as a wall. "Do you have any hemostatic medicine?" I thought for a moment, then turned and ran upstairs. I didn't go home. I knocked on the door of Mrs. Vong on the 5th floor. She lived alone and often kept pills for headaches and colds. "Grandma," I cut my hand. I hid my hands behind my back, my face expressionless. She squinted at me. "Again? Why are you still up so late? Does it hurt so much you can't sleep?" She sighed, turned back inside, and rummaged around. After a while she handed me a bottle of Yunnan Baiyao powder and a few band-aids. "Take these." "This poor girl. Why are you always getting hurt?" She tried to pat my head, but I instinctively dodged. Her hand froze in midair, and she gave an awkward smile. I grabbed the medicine and ran off. When I got back, the man had passed out. I poured the entire bottle of powder onto the bleeding wound on his stomach. He shook from the pain and jerked awake, staring at me. His eyes were like a wild beast's, but I wasn't afraid. I had seen scarier eyes before. The last time I forgot to wash the dishes. My father looked at me the same way before whipping me with his belt until my skin split open. This man looked fierce, but he couldn't even move now. I tore the lining from the padded jacket and clumsily bandaged him. He watched me for a while, his gaze slowly softening into something complicated and cautious. "What's your name?" "Shuda." "Your real name?" "That is my real name." He fell silent. After a moment he gave a faint laugh, then sucked in a breath as the wound flared. "Don't use that name anymore." "Then what should I be called?" "Haven't thought of one yet. Let me live first, then we'll talk." He hid in the storage corner for 3 days. During those 3 days, I lived like a thief. Every morning I hid half of the hard-steamed bun from my breakfast. At noon, I brought home half of the leftover lunch from school. At night, after everyone fell asleep, I sneaked out to bring him food. He was badly injured, burning with fever for 2 days straight. I had no money to buy medicine, so I filled plastic bags with snow, wrapped them in cloth, and pressed them to his forehead. I wasn't strong enough to turn him over, so I just kept boiling water for him to drink. Luckily he was tough. By the third night the fever finally broke. He leaned against the rotten boards, gnawing the dry half-bun I brought as if it were some delicacy. "You're feeding me this?" He raised an eyebrow at the dark lump in his hand. "If you don't want it, give it back." I reached out to snatch it. He quickly pulled his hand away. "Hey, easy, having anything to eat is already lucky." He shoved a few bites into his mouth and almost choked. I handed him half a bottle of water, the bottle I'd picked up by the roadside, filled from a public restroom. He didn't complain, just tilted his head back and drank more than half. "Where's the watch?" he suddenly asked. I took it out and handed it to him. The blood on the strap had dried black. The glass cracked, but the hands still moved. "You didn't sell it?" "I wouldn't dare. If I took it to a pawn shop, they'd think I stole it and call the police." He laughed and reached out to rub my head. His hand was large and rough, warm in a way I wasn't used to. I stiffened, but this time I didn't dodge. "Smart," he murmured. "Pack your things. We're leaving tomorrow." I looked up sharply. "Really? Do I look like someone who breaks promises?" He pushed himself up using the boards, trying several times before managing to stand. I watched him sway and wanted to help, but I was too small, probably useless anyway. "I don't have anything to pack," I said. All I owned besides my school uniform was a torn backpack with a few textbooks and half a pencil. The other clothes were hand-me-downs from acquaintances. I didn't care about them. "Even better, travel light." He leaned against the wall, his eyes growing distant. "Remember this, once you walk out that door, you're not Chuda anymore." "Then who am I?" He looked down at me. The dim hallway light traced the sharp lines of his face. "Tran An." "Why Tran?" "Same last name as mine." I trembled slightly. "Same last name as mine." Those words felt warmer than 100 steamed buns. "Okay, I'm Tran An." The next morning I put on my backpack like usual and headed out for school. My mother was busy in the kitchen boiling eggs for my brother. "Chuda, wash your brother's red scarf before you go," she shouted without turning around. I glanced at the scarf hanging on the rack, filthy, stained with grease. Normally I would have silently washed it, even if it made me late for school and got me scolded. But today I didn't move. I walked straight to the door and bent down to change my shoes. "You damn brat, are you deaf?" She stormed out with a spatula, pointing it at my face. "I told you to wash the scarf. I raised you all these years and you can't even do one simple thing?" I looked up at her quietly. It was the first time I had ever looked at her so seriously, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, the sagging skin, the constant disgust in her gaze. This was the woman who had given birth to me and raised me. "I won't wash it," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the still morning it sounded strangely clear. She froze, as if she couldn't believe I dared talk back. The next second her anger exploded. "You've rebelled. I'll beat you to death." She raised the spatula. I didn't dodge. "I have to go to school." Then I opened the door and walked out. The blow never came. Maybe she hadn't expected me to leave so decisively. Her curses echoed behind me, but I couldn't hear them clearly anymore, and I didn't want to. Downstairs, the man was leaning against the wall smoking. He had changed clothes, wearing a black jacket that hid the suit underneath. His beard was shaved, his face still pale but carrying the presence of someone used to power. He crushed the cigarette when he saw me. "All settled?" "Yeah." "Not saying goodbye?" "No." "Good." He opened the car door. It was an ordinary black sedan parked by the roadside. Nothing eye-catching. I climbed into the back seat. The car smelled faintly of tobacco mixed with an unfamiliar fragrance. I had never sat in such a nice car before. Through the car window, I watched the old apartment block slowly recede into the distance. On the balconies, clothes hung everywhere, colors mixed together like tattered flags. I saw a small head poke out from the window of my old home, my younger brother. He was spitting down below. I pulled my gaze back and looked straight ahead. Goodbye, Shuda. Uncle Tran took me to a villa in the western part of the city. The place was huge, bigger than any palace I had ever imagined. The yard was filled with flowers I didn't know the names of. And there was even a large artificial lake. But I had no mind to admire any of it. Because the moment we stepped through the door, a group of men in black suits surrounded us. Tran Jia, are you all right? Tran Jia, how is your wound? The traitor has been found. How should we deal with him? They all spoke at once. Faces tense with worry. Uncle Tran waved his hand for silence. It's just a small wound. I'm not dying. Then he pointed at me. Arrange a room for this girl and call a doctor to examine her. She's too thin. A man wearing glasses stepped forward and looked me up and down. Tran Jia, is this the child who saved you? Yes. Then, how do you plan to arrange things? Uncle Tran glanced at me and said casually, raise her as my daughter. The air went completely still. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. The man with glasses looked even more flustered, pushing his frames up as he stammered. Tran Jia, you can't be joking. This child's background is unclear. My life was picked up from an unclear background too. Uncle Tran cut him off, his gaze turning cold as ice. Any other opinions? No, none. The man lowered his head immediately, not daring to speak again. Just like that, I became Tran An. I lived in a bright, spacious room, slept on a bed as soft as clouds. The closet was filled with brand new dresses and clothes. Every day the housekeepers cooked different meals for me. But I wasn't happy at all. I was always uneasy. Could something this good really fall onto someone like me? I kept feeling it was all just a dream. That once I woke up, I would find myself curled up again in that damp hallway, shivering from the cold. So I never dared to turn off the lights when I slept. And I never slept deeply. The slightest noise would wake me instantly. My hand gripping the fruit knife hidden under my pillow. I had stolen that knife from the kitchen. Only when I held it did I feel even a little safe. Uncle Tran seemed to notice something was wrong with me. But he didn't say anything. He just had the lock on my door changed to a complicated passcode lock that only he and I knew. He also installed an alarm button at my bedside. One press and every bodyguard in the villa would rush in. No one here can touch you, he said at dinner, placing a piece of ribs into my bowl. Not even me. I looked at the ribs, my nose suddenly stinging. I lowered my head and focused on eating, not daring to let him see my reddened eyes. About a month later, I slowly adapted to life here. Uncle Tran hired the best tutors to make up for everything I had missed. I treasured this chance and studied desperately. I knew only education could change my fate, could let me truly stand firm in this world. One night after finishing my homework, I went downstairs to get water. Passing by the study, I heard arguing inside. The door was half closed. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the voices were too loud. Old Tran, have you gone crazy? Picking up a stray kid is one thing. Now you even want to transfer shares to her? It was a woman's sharp, piercing voice. That's my business, not yours, Uncle Tran replied coldly. Your business? Don't forget this company is half my life's work too. For some child of unknown origin, you're going to throw away all these years between us? Years between us? He let out a cold laugh. Back then when I was hunted down, hiding in that rotten hallway waiting to die, where were you? You were in a hotel, in bed with another man, celebrating that I was dead, weren't you? The study fell dead silent. After a long moment, the woman spoke again, her voice trembling. You knew? If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Now get out. Right after that came the rapid clatter of high heels. I hid at the corner of the stairs and saw a woman in a red coat storming down. Furious, as she passed me, she shot me a glare filled with hatred and venom. I recognized her. She was the businesswoman often featured in financial magazines, also the fiancée of Uncle Tran in name. To Man. I had heard their marriage was a business arrangement. Harmonious on the surface but cold underneath. I never imagined she had once wanted him dead. After she left, I carried my glass of water into the study. Uncle Tran was sitting in his chair, holding a photograph and staring at it. In the photo was a young woman holding a baby, smiling sweetly. "Is that your mother?" I asked. He came back to himself and put the photo into a drawer. "No, someone from the past." He looked at me and waved me over. I walked to his side. He opened another drawer and took out a stack of documents. "These are share transfer papers," he said. "As long as you sign, 10% of the company will be yours in the future." I was startled. "I don't need it." "Why, you didn't save me for money?" I looked straight into his eyes and answered seriously. "And besides, this money is too hot to hold. I can't keep it." The way the man looked at me just now, she wanted to swallow me alive. If I really took the shares, I probably wouldn't survive until tomorrow. Uncle Tran laughed heartily. "Not bad. The kid I chose really is cautious." He closed the documents and put them back. "Fine, I'll keep them for you. When you grow up and have the ability, I'll give them to you. But you must remember one thing." The smile disappeared, his face turning serious. "In this world, being cautious alone isn't enough. You also need strength. I will make you strong, so strong that no one will dare bully you again." From that day on, my schedule gained several new subjects: combat, shooting, Sonda. The instructor was a former Special Forces soldier, ruthless in his methods. Every day I was thrown around until my face was bruised and my body ached as if every joint had been pulled apart. But I never complained, never shed a tear, because I knew Uncle Tran was paving a road for me. He was teaching me how to survive in this man-eating world. That day I was in the training room practicing punches when the man with glasses rushed in. Panic written all over his face. "Miss, something's wrong. Tran Gia is in trouble." My heart sank, my hands stopping mid-motion. "What happened?" "Tran Gia went to inspect the abandoned district in the west. And he was blocked by Taman's people. And I heard Taman kidnapped your younger brother." "My younger brother?" I frowned. "I don't have a brother." "The one who only watches cartoons and spits at me? That brother?" "Yes, the boy named Wang Bao. Taman said if the shares aren't handed over, she'll tear him apart." My mind exploded. Was Taman insane? Kidnapping me would make sense. But kidnapping that useless thing, what for? And how could Uncle Tran be trapped so easily? He had so many bodyguards. Something didn't feel right. "Miss, please go save Tran Gia. If you're late it'll be too late," the man kept urging. I looked at his fake anxious face and suddenly laughed. "You sold out Uncle Tran, didn't you?" His expression froze instantly. "Miss, what are you saying? I'm absolutely loyal to Tran Gia." "Absolutely loyal?" I slowly unwrapped the bandage around my hands. "If you were really loyal, you wouldn't not know that the so-called brother means less than nothing to me. Using him to threaten me is a joke. And Uncle Tran." I walked to the weapon rack, picked up an unsharpened dagger and tossed it lightly in my hand. If he couldn't even deal with Taman, he wouldn't have lived until today. The man's face went pale in an instant. He stepped back, trying to draw his gun. But I was faster. The dagger left my hand and pierced straight into his wrist. "Ah!" he screamed, the gun falling to the floor. The bodyguards rushed in and pinned him down. I walked over, picked up the gun, and looked at him coldly. "Speak, what exactly does Taman want?" He was sweating from the pain but clenched his teeth and stayed silent. I pressed the muzzle against his forehead. "Then let me help you remember. Were you planning to lure me there and stage an accident so Uncle Tran and I would both die?" His pupils shrank suddenly. "Looks like I guessed right." At that moment my phone rang. An unknown number. The moment I answered, Taman's triumphant laughter came through the line. "You filthy little mongrel," Taman sneered through the phone. Looks like you're not as stupid as I thought. But you're still too green. Did you really think I only grabbed that useless brother of yours? There was a burst of chaotic noise on the line. Then a familiar yet distant wailing voice. Chuda, save me. Chuda, they're beating me. It was my mother. My hand holding the phone trembled slightly. Well, is this bargaining chip heavy enough? Man's voice slid into my ear like a venomous snake. Half an hour. Come alone to the abandoned district in the west of the city. If you dare bring anyone, I'll bury your mother along with you. Beep. The call ended. I stood there, listening to the empty tone. Strangely calm. My mother had been kidnapped, the woman who only knew how to peel shrimp for my brother. Who shoved me out the door? Who had once almost smashed my head in with a spatula? Whether she lived or died, what did that have to do with me? I should have felt happy. Wasn't this karma? Then why were my hands still shaking? Was it blood ties, or just that pitiful bit of conscience left in me? I took a deep breath and tucked the gun behind my back. Prepare the car, I told the bodyguard. Miss, Tran ordered that you're not allowed to go out. Move. My gaze turned cold. Whatever happens, I'll take responsibility. The bodyguard hesitated, then finally stepped aside. I knew they couldn't stop me. I also knew this was a trap. But I still had to go. Not to save that woman, but to end everything. To completely cut ties with the Chuda of the past. The abandoned district in the west of the city. Weeds grew wild, walls crumbling everywhere. I parked by the road and walked in alone. The strong wind made me shiver. But I kept my back straight. Step by step moving deeper inside. On the second floor of a half-finished building, I saw a man. She was wearing a red coat, leaning against a concrete pillar with a slim cigarette between her fingers. Behind her, two people were tied up, my mother and my younger brother. Their mouths were taped, muffled cries leaking out in terror. When she saw me, Man burst out laughing, her whole body shaking. Well, such deep mother-daughter love. I thought a cold-blooded thing like you wouldn't care whether they lived or died. I stopped about 10 meters away. Let them go, I said flatly. I'm here, if you want to kill someone. Aim at me. Let them go? She flicked the cigarette to the ground and crushed it with her heel. Not that easy. Tran An, do you know what I hate most about you? That righteous look on your face. You're just a rat from the sewer. Yet you act like you're something noble. She waved a hand. Several burly men stepped out of the shadows, iron rods in their hands. Break her legs. I didn't move, just watched them coldly as they closed in. When they were almost upon me, I pulled the gun from behind my back and fired into the air. Bang! The shot echoed through the abandoned building, vibrating painfully in my ears. The men froze. Man stiffened too. Clearly she hadn't expected me to have a gun. Where did you get that? Uncle Tran gave it to me. I lied. In truth I had stolen it from the training room. Only 3 bullets. I had just used 1, 2 left. Man, do you really think I came alone? I raised the gun and stepped closer. Uncle Tran's people have already surrounded this place. Let them go now and you might still have a way out. Her face changed. She instinctively glanced toward the window. In that instant of distraction, I lunged forward. I knew I couldn't beat those men. But if I could grab Man, it would be enough. Capture the king to capture the bandits. Unfortunately, I overestimated my speed and underestimated her cruelty. One of the brutes reacted in time and swung an iron rod into my back. Blinding pain exploded through me. I staggered and collapsed. The gun flew from my hand, sliding right to Man's feet. Ha ha ha. She picked it up, laughing wildly. You little bitch, you dared trick me? She pointed the gun at my head. Let's see how you die this time. I lay on the ground, my insides churning, staring at the black muzzle. I closed my eyes in despair. Was this really where I was going to die? At that moment, an earth-shattering crash thundered through the building. Not a gunshot, a black SUV smashed straight through the wall. bricks and dust exploding everywhere. Before the vehicle even stopped, a figure jumped out. Black coat, razor-sharp eyes. Uncle Tran. He raised a submachine gun and sprayed bullets at the brutes. Bang, bang, bang. They didn't even have time to react before collapsing into pools of blood. Man froze, dropping the pistol, then screamed and tried to run. But Uncle Tran was already there, his hand clamping around her throat. You want to touch my person, did you ask me first? His voice was low and hoarse, thick with killing intent. She struggled violently, her face turning purple. Lao Tran, spare me. Too late. His fingers tightened, her eyes rolled back, almost choking out. Uncle Tran, I shouted. His hand paused, he turned to look at me. What, soft-hearted? I staggered to my feet, wiping blood from the corner of my mouth. No. I picked up the gun and walked to stand in front of Man. I want to finish this myself. Uncle Tran released her. She collapsed to the ground, gasping, seeing the gun in my hand. She finally felt fear. Chuda, please, I was forced. She crawled toward me, trying to grab my leg. I stepped back, avoiding those filthy hands. I'm not Chuda, my name is Tran An. I raised the gun and aimed between her brows. But at the very moment I was about to pull the trigger, my mother struggled free from the ropes and rushed over. Chuda, don't kill anyone. If you kill, you'll have to pay with your life. She threw herself in front of Man, crying hysterically. Mom begs you, spare her. She's a big boss. We can't afford to offend her. I looked at the woman kneeling before me for the sake of an outsider, and the last trace of warmth in my heart completely vanished. Mom, do you know why she wanted to kill me? I asked. For money. Just for a few filthy bills she could take my life. And you? To survive, you'd watch your own daughter die. My mother froze, mouth open, unable to say a single word. I laughed and tossed the gun to Tran Chan. I'm done, I said. Killing someone like her would only dirty my hands. I turned and walked away without looking back even once. Behind me, he watched my back, the corner of his lips curling into a cryptic smile. Right after that, several heavy gunshots rang out, followed by Man's desperate screams. What happened at the abandoned building in the west of the city ended like a dark farce. The curtain falling quickly, Man disappeared. The public announcement was that she had gone abroad for medical treatment. My mother and my younger brother were sent back to the countryside by his people with a sum of money enough for them to live out the rest of their lives, on the condition that they would never set foot in this city again. He asked me why I hadn't killed Man myself. I told him death would have been too easy for her. Living in suffering was the greatest punishment. He didn't ask anything more, only brought me the transfer papers for the shares he had insisted I take. This time I didn't refuse. I knew I finally had the right to accept them, because I was no longer that girl called Shuda who only knew how to cry in a corner. Life seemed to return to a kind of calm, but I kept feeling something was off. Recently he had become much busier, often staying out all night. The bodyguards in the house were replaced again and again, and the atmosphere grew more tense each day. I had a vague sense that something big was about to happen. That night, I was reviewing my lessons when the power suddenly went out. The entire villa sank into darkness. My heart tightened. I immediately reached under my pillow and grabbed the dagger. Outside, I heard very light footsteps. Not the heavy, decisive steps of the bodyguards on patrol. I knew those too well. These were light and hurried, like a cat crossing roof tiles. Someone had sneaked in. I held my breath and pressed myself into the shadow at the foot of the bed. The lock gave a tiny click. Someone was picking it. A dark figure slipped inside, holding something that glinted coldly under the moonlight. A knife. He moved silently toward the bed and stabbed down hard. Thud. The blade ripped through the blanket with a sharp, brutal sound in the silent night. But I wasn't there. I had stuffed pillows under the covers earlier, shaping them like a sleeping person. The moment he froze, I lunged from behind and pressed my dagger against his throat. Don't move. The man went rigid. Who sent you? I asked coldly. He didn't answer. Suddenly he countered, grabbing my wrist and twisting hard. Pain shot through me and I dropped the dagger. But instead of taking the chance to kill me, he rolled aside, knocking over the nightstand. The lights flicked on, the backup power had started. Now I could see his face clearly. A young man, a stranger. He looked almost scholarly, but his eyes were chillingly cold. He wore black, and on his arm was a fresh wound still bleeding. Who are you? I asked warily, gripping the desk lamp as a weapon. He held his arm and looked at me for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Not bad, just like a pup raised by Tran An, sharp and alert. That was his real name. This man knew him. Who exactly are you? I demanded. I came to save you, he said, and that sentence left me stunned. Save me? He wants to use you as a scapegoat. His voice hit like thunder. He's in serious trouble. The higher-ups are investigating. He needs someone to take the fall. And you're the perfect candidate. No father, no mother, an unclear background, and holding 10% of the company shares. All he has to do is push you out and claim all the dirty accounts where you're doing, and he walks away clean. My heart clenched. His words sounded insane, yet terrifyingly logical. I remembered the sudden share transfer. The phrase, unclear background, from the man with glasses. Could everything really have been a trap? I don't believe you, I said through clenched teeth. Believe it or not is your choice, he replied with a cold laugh. Think about it. Why didn't a man act sooner or later? Why right after you received the shares? That was information he deliberately leaked. Using someone else's knife to kill. If she succeeded, he'd remove a future threat. If she failed, you'd become absolutely loyal to him. Either way, he wins. I couldn't stop myself from taking a step back. Images flooded my mind, his complicated gaze. His words about sharing the same surname. The urgency when he pushed me to sign. Had everything been a lie? Come with me, the man said, reaching out his hand. There's still time. I can get you out. I stared at his hand, hesitating. Go where? If I leave, do I return to being that penniless girl called Shuda again? No, I couldn't. Even if this is a trap. I need the truth. Even if I die, I'll die knowing why. I'm not going, I said, picking up the dagger again and pointing it at him. Kill me if you want. Otherwise, get out. He sighed, a trace of pity in his eyes. You'll regret this. Then he turned and jumped out the window. Vanishing into the night, I rushed to the window and watched his figure disappear into the darkness. My heart in complete chaos. The next morning he returned. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, stubble covering his chin. When he saw me, he forced a smile. An, you must have been scared these days. Huh? I shook my head, secretly studying his face, unable to find a single flaw. Was he truly worried about me? Or only acting? Is something wrong with the company? I tested. He froze for a second, then rubbed his forehead. Kids shouldn't ask so much. Is someone investigating you? I pressed. He looked up sharply, eyes suddenly piercing. Who told you that? That reaction confirmed everything. The investigation was real. No one. I lowered my head. I just guessed. He was silent for a long time, then sighed. An, some things are complicated. Just remember, no matter what happens, I will protect you. Protect me? Like the way he had protected Man until she died without even a whole body left? I sneered inside, but on the surface I nodded obediently. Over the next few days, I secretly investigated what the man had told me. Using the computer skills he had once taught me, I hacked into the company's internal system. And there it was, countless abnormal transactions. Every stream of money eventually flowed into an overseas account. The account holder's name was written in pinyin, Tran An. My name. At that moment, I felt my entire body turn cold, as if my blood had frozen. The man hadn't lied. He was truly using me as his scapegoat. Once those massive illegal funds were uncovered, the one to be convicted would be me, life imprisonment. maybe even the death penalty. So the so-called adoption, the affection, the shares, everything had been a carefully designed trap. I was nothing more than a chess piece he had picked up from that old, filthy corridor long ago. Used up and thrown away whenever he pleased. Tears slipped down my face before I could stop them. I wiped them off quickly. What good was crying? Chuda was already dead. Now I was Tran An. If they wanted to turn me into a chess piece, then I would flip the entire board. I began secretly moving the evidence. I copied all the account books and stored them in an encrypted USB drive. After that, I tried to contact the man who had broken into my room the other day. He had left me a scrap of paper, just an email address on it. I sent him a message. I have the evidence. How do we cooperate? The reply came quickly. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m., the harbor warehouse. It was an extremely dangerous decision, but I had no other choice. In that house, I was nothing but a bird locked in a cage. Sooner or later Tran would finish me off. Risking everything was better than sitting there waiting to die. The next evening I made up an excuse about going to a classmate's house to study and slipped out. Rain was pouring outside, thunder rolling through the sky. I took a taxi to the harbor warehouse. The place was desolate, eerie, stacked with shipping containers everywhere. He was already waiting. Still dressed in black, standing in the rain like a ghost. "Did you bring it?" he asked. I pulled the USB from my pocket and gripped it tightly. "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" "I'm police." He showed his badge, an undercover officer. I froze. No wonder he knew so much. No wonder his skills were so sharp. "Give it to me," he said. "You can become a protected witness. We'll keep you safe." I looked at the USB in my hand. The moment I handed it over, Tran would be finished. The man who had dragged me out of hell, fed me, clothed me, taught me how to survive, even if his goal had always been to use me, would fall. I hesitated, even though I knew everything had been a trap. A small part of me still clung to those months, the rare time in my life when I had been treated like a human being. "What are you waiting for?" the officer urged impatiently. "He's destroying you." "I know." I took a deep breath and held the USB out to him. "Take it." Just as his fingers were about to touch it, blinding headlights exploded around us. Dozens of car beams lit up the darkness. Forcing my eyes shut, men in black closed in from every direction. The one at the front was Tran. He held a black umbrella, staring at me with a cold expression. "An, you've disappointed me." My heart dropped. It was a trap. The officer went pale. He grabbed my arm. "Run, now." But surrounded like this, where could we run? Within seconds we were forced into a dead end. The officer shielded me with his body and was hit by multiple bullets, collapsing into a pool of blood. "Don't worry about me," he gasped. "Go." He shoved the USB back into my hand with the last of his strength and pushed me away. I stumbled back, watching him get shot to death right in front of me. Tears blurred my vision. Another person had died. Because of me. Tran walked over slowly, glanced at the body on the ground, and let out a cold laugh. "That's the price of betraying me." He stretched out his hand. "Give it here." I clenched the USB so hard my nails cut into my palm. "Why did you lie to me?" I asked. "Why give me hope just to destroy it yourself?" Tran sighed. For a moment something complicated flickered in his eyes. "An, this world is cruel. No one treats you well for no reason. If you want to survive, you must learn to use everything you can, including feelings." His words were brutally calm. I laughed, a sound uglier than crying. "You're right, I should learn to use everything." I raised the USB as if I were about to throw it into the sea. "Don't." Tran's face changed. He lunged forward. At that exact instant, my other hand drew the dagger and stabbed straight toward his chest, the killing move he himself had taught me. Aim for the heart. He never expected me to fight back. Or rather, he never believed I would dare to kill him. The blade sank into his body, but his reflexes were too fast. He twisted aside at the last second. The knife missed his heart and buried itself in his shoulder. Blood splattered across my face. He groaned and struck me away with a backhand. I crashed to the ground, bones screaming in pain. The USB flew from my grasp and dropped straight into the sea. An. Tran clutched his wound, staring at me in disbelief. I did it to protect myself. I spat out a mouthful of blood and forced myself up, glaring at him. You once said I had to be strong, so strong no one would dare bully me. Now that, no one, includes you. He looked at me, the fury in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by a nearly insane admiration. Good, very good, just what I thought. He waved off the men who were about to rush forward. Consider this my loss today. The USB is gone, those accounts have no proof anymore. You didn't kill me either. We're even. Holding his wounded shoulder, he turned to leave. From now on, don't ever let me see you again. Next time, I won't show mercy. I watched his back disappear into the rain. At last my strength gave out and I collapsed. The rain drenched me, freezing to the bone, yet inside I felt lighter than ever. It was over, between me and the past. Between Chuda and Tran An. Everything had ended. 3 years later, in a small northern town, I opened a tiny grocery store. Business was decent. I had changed my name to Lam Mac. No one knew my past. No one knew I had once been the despised girl called Chuda. Or the foster daughter of an underworld king. That night at the harbor, I had hidden one last move. The USB I held had been completely empty. The real evidence, I had already sent to the police's public mailbox long before. Tran escaped that time, but his power was shattered. To avoid investigation he fled overseas and never returned. The undercover officer who died was later honored as a martyr. Every Qingming festival I secretly visit his grave. Today, while I was arranging goods, the wind chime at the door rang. Welcome, I called without turning around. No footsteps followed. Surprised, I looked back. At the doorway stood a man in a worn coat. Face weathered, one arm missing. He stared at me with cloudy eyes. I froze. Even aged and ruined, I recognized him, Tran. The man who once ruled everything now looked like a broken old drifter. I had changed too, short hair. A little plumper, just an ordinary shop owner in a market town. We looked at each other for a long time without speaking. Finally he fumbled out a crumpled bill. A pack of cigarettes? His voice was hoarse, stripped of all former authority. I handed him the cheapest pack. No charge. He took it, hands trembling. Thank you, he said, then turned and walked out. At the threshold he paused, as if about to look back, but in the end he didn't. I watched his hunched figure vanish into the snowy rain and let out a long breath. This time, it was truly the end. Outside, the snow fell thick and fast, quickly erasing the footprints he left behind, just like it buried all the old stories of those years. I closed the shop and hung up the closed sign. Inside was warm. I planned to cook myself a bowl of noodles, 2 soft-boiled eggs. No scallions. My favorite way to eat. No need to peel shrimp for anyone anymore. No need to live watching someone else's face. I am Lam Mac. At last, I have a life that belongs to me. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.